Hello, welcome to Thrive. This is Thrive Thursday. I'm Lori. I'm here with Shane and Jill, the author of Closing a Chapter. Jill, what inspired you to write Closing a Chapter?
Well, as often happens here at Thrive, it was inspired by what was going on in my world, and we get to talk about moving forward and what we're learning and all of those cool things all the time. And I had realized through a series of conversations that I was continuing to tag back to a chapter in my life, and I was continuing to sort of address things that were happening in live time based on the longevity of that past chapter. And so the article is really about recognizing that I had the power to decide that that chapter in my life was done. It was an awesome chapter. It was filled with all kinds of learning and rebuilding and self-discovery and, so very much stuff in my life. But it was also a chapter of a lot of white knuckling, a lot of grit, a lot of struggle. And so as I was moving forward, I was finding myself reassimilating with that struggle and making it sort of this longevity thing that, I'm still in that struggle, I'm still in that struggle, I'm still in that struggle. But when my day-to-day experience wasn't matching that. But every time I'd have an experience of it, I'm like, I've been struggling for 10 years. Mm-hmm. And so it was really the conscious decision to say, no, I haven't been struggling for 10 years. I did struggle, and now I've moved into something very different than that. And the more I keep saying, I've been struggling for 10 years, the more I'm perpetuating that struggle, the more I'm making that 11 years or 12 years or whatever. And so it was really just that decision of, wow, I'm done with that. Yeah. I don't need to tag back to that anymore. I don't need to associate with that feeling of struggle anymore. I don't need every lesson to trigger those feelings of gritting my way through life. Now those triggers allow me to grow. I can still move forward. I can get the lessons without having to associate it with the struggle of that self-discovery period.
So how did you do that? Because so many people hit these points in life where they're like, I'm so done with that, I don't want to deal with this anymore, but they can't get past it. Yeah. So they're stuck in what you said you were stuck in for so long.
Right. And I do think some of it is just timing, right? Some of the lessons we have to learn over and over again until we really are done with them. And so some of it is just accepting that you're going to learn the same thing a number of times. And I think the next part of it is then deciding that, no, that is done. I got what I needed from it. The next time I experience that lesson, I'm going to experience it differently. I'm going to experience it from where I am now instead of letting myself go back to where I was the last time I experienced it. So I can have the exact same lesson, but I can experience it with the tools and the awareness and the emotional aptitude that I have now. Just because I'm getting the same lesson or the same experience doesn't mean that I have to go back to who I was the last time I had it. And I don't need to draw the parallels. I don't need to say, man, I'm still that guy that has this same lesson. It's like, no, interesting. Now I'm experiencing it here. What's different in this point? What do I know now that I didn't know the last time?
Right.
How does it feel different? So rather than how does it feel the same, looking at how does it feel different?
Yeah, so it's not connecting to the old pattern anymore. I mean, I always like to say that true change is responding differently to a structure that doesn't change.
Right.
So you're seeing the same stuff show up, but you know what? I'm tired of it. I know how this goes. I've been playing in it for 10 years. I know where I wind up, and I'm going to do it differently this time.
Right.
I'm going to see if I wind up someplace else if I respond differently to that same situation showing up.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
That's
so
cool.
It's about deciding. It's about deciding, nope, that is done. I've gotten what I need from it. Now I experience life like this.
So when you have those hard moments, because I know anytime we're trying to change a dynamic that's deeply rooted in us, we have that twinge of, it's so much easier to fall back into the pattern. So when you felt those triggers of wanting to go back, how did you stop yourself?
Well, it's still pretty new, so we'll see how it's a pretty new awareness that I'm playing in. For me, I think it's staying in the awareness. Anything new that we're learning, we have to practice. So when it comes up, when I start to feel that old pattern, it's just like, no, that's not what it is. It's this, and making that lifetime choice to look at it differently, to experience it differently. I think the other thing that I've gotten so much better at over time is letting things be a singular point in time instead of this huge indication of non-movement. So if I have a sad feeling, I don't need that to be, oh man, I've been having sad feelings for 10 years. It can just be, oh, I'm having a sad feeling. okay.
And I mean, it's funny because people do that, especially with stress. They have a sad feeling and they lump it in with the trauma.
Stressed, right.
Or right, like you expressed that you had this traumatic experience. Your marriage ended, you lost your job, so now you're having a bad day and you're lumping it in with all
Life is
compassion.
so hard for me.
Right. Instead of saying, no, I'm just having this hard thing that I can deal with
Yeah.
right now, and it's not that big of a thing if I deal with this one thing, but when I lump it into this major
Right.
trauma, now it's a big thing I have to deal with.
Right. And I think, what I'm hearing you say in that, Lori, is, how quickly are you going to align with being the victim of that situation,
Mhm.
right? So am I a victim of this sad feeling and I've been a victim all these years and life keeps just throwing hard things at me? Or is it, I'm having a sad feeling, isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
What am I going to do about that? And reclaiming my power and my
Today's the day
responsibility.
I'm going to stop connecting it to the other,
Right. Or choosing something else to connect it to. I'm having a sad feeling because I'm unlovable and my life isn't ever going to get where it needs to be and I don't have enough this or that, versus, I'm having a sad feeling. Maybe I need to take a nap. Right? It could be related to something completely different. I don't have to go into all the stories. Like, I have a glass of water and look out a different window.
Right.
I don't need to make those same connections. Whereas when we experience something challenging and we recognize the feelings of that challenge, and then we experience that feeling again, it's really easy to be transported back to
definitely.
the struggle of that challenge. And I think that's really the meat of this article is now I can experience feelings in today's life without them needing to be anything to do with the growth of those last 10 years. Because I climbed out of a hole and it took me a long time. It took me way longer than I thought it was going to. And the feelings that I'm experiencing now don't need to transport me back there anymore.
Yeah.
That was a pattern that I didn't recognize until I did.
Yeah.
And now that I recognize it, I'm like, oh good, I don't have to go back there. It doesn't have to take me back to that place.
But that is so profound for so many people because we have an experience and we attach it to so
Right.
many experiences in our life and it becomes this bigger, more gut-wrenching thing to tolerate. Where if we can isolate them and say, I'm having a bad day or I need a nap or, my boss said something negative about me and I'm worthless, I'm not valuable,
Right.
I remember when my dad did this, we could just say, maybe my boss had a bad day.
Right.
Let me take this situation in isolation and not connect it to all this other stuff
right.
it doesn't have to be connected to.
Right. Our tendency to look for patterns serves us really, really well. We need that. We need those habitual patterns. We need those things that automate
to make sense of
anything in life. Exactly. We're built for patterns. And yet, if we don't pay attention to what those patterns are doing, it's really easy to perpetuate things that we don't want perpetuated. And so it's taking control over those patterns and saying, I don't want that pattern anymore. Now I want a drop of sadness to indicate, I still have feelings. Isn't that interesting? I wonder what's going on. Is there a physical cue? I want it to ask me different questions instead of just going into the old pattern of, there's that familiar heavy feeling again, or there's that misery again, or there's the struggle, or there's the indication that I haven't gotten as far as I've gotten, which was all the old stories.
Right.
So it's permission to write new stories.
And what's interesting is, like you were saying, it becomes so ingrained that it becomes unconscious. You're
Totally
no longer
unconscious.
even
Right.
thinking about it anymore.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And you have said to me, and if you had said to me, why are you perpetuating that old pattern? I said, I'm not intentionally perpetuating the old pattern. And you can't see it. I couldn't see it until I could see it. And it wasn't done until it was done. And I think that's part of the journey as well, as you can't force this stuff. You can't see beyond the phase that you're on. And so again, it's a reminder of presence beyond the step that you're on, beyond the lesson you're on. Be in gratitude for where you are right now and do the work of the day rather than having to have it all figured out.
Yeah.
And I think that's pretty cool, and I think there's a lot of wisdom coming from that perspective, coming from your spot right now. That's what I hear in it, is like, you can experience stuff for forever, but if you never become aware of it, you're not actually learning. There's wisdom in that, making that awareness and making that change and whatever. And I think one of the coolest parts about it is, like, you've applied it to, that the stress or the bad day or the story or whatever, that chapter in your life. Where else can you see it being applied, or that people could apply it, or you know what I mean? Like,
Right.
it doesn't have to just be about a bad story or a bad habit or whatever.
I really think it's a cool cool application in the spectrum, right? So as I'm experiencing new things over here and I'm relating them to things that have happened over here, it's really, I don't know, it's just a paying attention to history. Where is history influencing how you're moving forward, and how much do you want it to? And just because happiness felt like this over here, that doesn't mean that that's how it needs to feel tomorrow. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know where else to apply. I mean, other than the decisions are so important. Deciding that you're breaking patterns, deciding that you're going to see it differently, deciding that you're going to practice it differently, deciding that you're not going to let things that happened yesterday or the day before or 10 years ago continue to pollute your forward moving experience.
Mm-hmm. And you mentioned in here, I'm turning my focus to the new chapter. So for one, how do you know it's a new chapter, and are you writing the chapter in your mind ahead of time? Are you pre-paving? Are you intention setting? Or what does the new chapter look like for you?
The new chapter for me, as I said in the article, is much less about struggle. I have spent the last 10 years getting to know myself and building a relationship with myself and finding a way to experience unconditional love of this human experience. And it's not perfect, and there's a long way to go. But the metaphor that I like to use is, if you were building a house, you start with the basement, and you lay the foundation, then you put the first floor in, you throw the walls up, and eventually you're doing detail work and hanging pictures. But you get to a point where it's time to live in the house. And that's how I feel. I feel like I built the basement. Like, I got stripped down, like, my shit was demolished. In 2008, like, the wrecking ball came through. And so, sort of consciously and unconsciously at the same time, I started building, right? And I built and I built and I built and I built, and I just kind of winged it, and I intuited what needed to happen next. I'm like, all right, I'll put this wall up because that makes sense, and all right, we'll put this window in over here because that maybe is a good idea. And then I had to move stuff around because it didn't work out the way I thought it was going to. And so I've spent the last 10 years crafting this house. And the new chapter is, the pictures are hung, it's a beautiful house, it's time to live in a house. It's time to experience life as no longer a total work in progress, but now more into an evolution type of thing. Mm-hmm. It's time to experience living as me. I've built me, I get me, I'm cool with me. Now it's time to experience life as me.
Yeah, I've constructed this really cool place, now I get to live in it.
Now I get to enjoy, like the hard work is done. That's how it feels.
And I get to experience a new version of myself in that new setting.
Right.
Yeah.
And I am, because of that process, I'm very aware that, then every once in a while you repaint a room, you move a picture around, you scoot some furniture around.
Maybe you crash out a wall.
Maybe you run an addition. Right, whatever. But that process of starting over, that I don't need to be in fear of that anymore. Because that building process was scary for a long time because I didn't know how to do it. And it was a lot of trial and error. And a lot of the things I tried didn't seem to get me where I wanted to go. Because I thought my house was just going to get built. And I was going to be back in the world.
Yeah. And so now it's nice because you have that realization. I don't have to connect to building the house anymore because it sucked. Right. But I'm just going to live in the house. And
house is built. Stop worrying about
it.
Right. And so now if I, hit my thumb with a hammer, it's not because I'm still in the struggle of building the house. It's just as, oops, I hit my thumb with a hammer. Right? Yeah. It's not, this house is so much work to build, which was sort of the energy that I was still holding on to. Now it's just the gratitude. Oh my God, the house is built.
Yeah,
thank God. Cool. Let's go. What are we gonna do now that the house is built? Now that all the time and energy and grit that went into building the house, now that that chapter is done, now what do you do with it?
Yeah.
Go do something else. And that's what it feels like. It feels like go do something else. And that's what my focus is on. What's the new experiences now that heavy lifting is.
So you've gone from dread and fear to excitement and wonder and fun, and exploration.
What do I do with this life?
What a cool thing to perpetuate.
Yeah. Much better place to be. Much better place to be.
Is there anything else you would like any of the listeners to know about your article, or?
Nope.
Shane, anything else you would like to add?
No, just that I love the house metaphor there.
I did
There's
too.
a lot of actually sports applications with that as well, so I can't wait to mess with that.
Yeah.
Nice. Well, thank you, you two.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us today. If you like our conversation and want to learn more about this, we have Regular workshops that come up, we have a class starting in September, our Human Progress training. It's at the end of September. You can find more information about us and what we do online at thrivehdc.com. Thank you for joining us today.
See you next time.
See ya.
Bye.
Okay.